Hi, my name is Uhuru Mofokeng and welcome to the South African Book Review Sessions, your online political book club where everything political literature is eviscerated, vivisected and dissected. Thank you very much for joining us and thank you for the support and the feedback we're receiving. We're receiving huge feedback. We are very grateful for that. For those of you who have not yet subscribed, please press the subscribe button. And yo guys, it's for free. You just subscribe. There's no extra cost. There's no extra cost whatsoever. I received a call yesterday from one of my comrades asking like, Chan, is there an extra cost there for subscribing? No guys, there's no extra cost. Absolutely no extra cost. So what book are we discussing today? Today we're discussing a book by Pieter Du Toit, Stellenbosch Mafia. It's one of the 2020 releases and it's amongst the best-selling books in the country at present moment. Just like you, when I saw the book, I was very interested by the book, the title of the book, and looking at the gentleman in the front. I could recognize them. I was like, yeah, this is going to be a great book, Stellenbosch Mafia. And here are they right here. Guys, I will rate the book in the end between 0 and 10. And I'll tell you where I rate this book. But then, to summarize this book, guys, before I even get into detail, it was like a very beautiful girl that you see as a guy. You see like that girl, or a guy, or as a girl you see a guy like, oh, that's a very nice guy. But then once you get to meet the person up close, you get very disappointed. Maybe the person is shallow, the person's not as entertaining as you would have assumed them to be, is not as, it's perhaps the person just didn't meet the expectations you had. That's how I feel about this book. But then that's just me. I believe if you cannot identify a single of these guys, or if there's a single of these guys that you do not know, this book will be a fantastic book for you. How do I see this book? I see it as a beginner's guide to white monopoly capital in South Africa, getting to know who's who does what, how did they get there, on which factions in Stellenbosch or in the white monopoly capital world do these guys do they align themselves to, and it's just an introduction. Basically, it introduces you to you that, hey, this is Rupert, this is Wiese, this is Markus Jooste, and this is JP Morton. So it introduces you to these chaps. If you didn't know this, guys, this book is gonna be quite helpful for you. It's gonna introduce you to these chaps, who owns what, how they got there, and basically it talks about billionaires, white Afrikaner billionaires who are stationed in Stellenbosch. Not all of them are from Stellenbosch by birth. Most of them have adopted Stellenbosch. Some of them are from Joburg, and that's the faction led by Markus Jooste. They're from Joburg, and they relocated to Stellenbosch and have some of the headquarters of the companies in Stellenbosch. Now, the author loves Stellenbosch clearly because it goes into deep detail explaining the history, telling us about the hotspots of the town, how the town evolved, how the town used to be, and then it explains how the town changed, and the behavior of some of the billionaires changed once Markus Jooste came to town and his stein of money. The author does have a very strong dislike for Markus Jooste. He dedicates a number of chapters to Markus Jooste and his flaws. I don't even doubt. I'm assured that he does not do that with any of these other fellows besides Markus Jooste. He talks. Obviously, it's Markus Jooste is involved in the biggest scandal ever of Steinhoff. But then, like, these chaps, there's plenty of things you can tell us about these guys. But then I feel like he's an apologist in a way. He tries, instead of depicting the Stellenbosch Mafia and their operations and what makes them a mafia, he tries actually to brush the thought of the existence of a Stellenbosch Mafia. He actually pushes that idea, said that, you know what, guys, there's no Stellenbosch Mafia. These are guys who meet at coffee shops on Friday afternoons and discuss business, and it happens that they're all billionaires and they're all Afrikaners. I feel he's an apologist in a way, and but then one thing he does justice in with regard to this book is actually explain to us that, listen, it's not only the African National Congress that has factions. It's not only the ANC that is divided. It's not only in the Taxi Association where we'll find the NTA versus Santaco, or in the streets where you find the 2-6 or the 2 versus the 2-8, or Mac gang, this gang versus the other gang. Also, even in Mike Monopoly Corners, this man tells us that, hey, for example, there was an existing alliance for years between Christo Wiese and Markus Jooste, and in the fall of Steinhoff, Christo Wiese lost about 159 billion rand. This guy's of money, eh? No, this guy's of money. No, so, and they basically operated just in tandem with the faction of, or led by Rupert himself. So he explains that there are factions, and Markus Jooste was basically standing up to Rupert, like, Rupert, I'm here now, I'm competition. And Rupert was not happy with that, because the man was there showing off. Apparently he had great parties. They even tell you a story of the 2015 World Cup where he flew these business partners on the accounts and the expense of Steinhoff to the World Cup in England, for a tour of the World Cup in England, through attending matches and even the final in Twickenham and going for tours around Britain. The man lived an extravagant, flamboyant lifestyle. The type of lifestyle I would live if I had access to so many billions. The only thing I'd do, I wouldn't steal from the poor. Markus Jooste basically stole from the poor. His dubious transactions collapsed investments by the PIC, which represents workers, poor people who work all their lives to have their savings, and Markus Jooste just did what he did. Because of that, no, Markus Jooste. But then the book doesn't tell you the truth about Markus Jooste. It just highlights. If you want a proper book that's going to tell you about Markus Jooste, and you're interested in reading about Markus Jooste and want to know better, this is the book. This is an incredible book. I'll do a review on it quite soon. Expect a review on it. It's a beautiful book. It gets into detail on Markus Jooste. This book is an introduction, gives you a bit of sense if you have to read something as deep as this. Now, basically, that's what the book does. And as I've said, if you look at these chaps, most of them are beneficiaries of state policies. They rose to where they rose because of state policies, more especially those ones who got rich before 1994. Markus Jooste got rich after 1994, had his own company. He started very small, owning Goma, and took over the furniture business by storm. But then, no, for this particular book, I think it does not do serious justice to Markus Jooste. Besides painting him, and maybe correctly so, as a dubious character who do anything to get rich. But then I'm sure all of these other ones, these guys have billions, man. They could have got that because of pure hearts and Russia's deeds only. And he does not do that. He actually paints Rupert as a victim of apartheid. This man is joking. A victim of apartheid, Rupert, such a beneficiary. To make an example, he tells of a story between Rupert and a former defense minister during the apartheid era, Defense Minister Magnus Malan. Actually, Rupert was saying some rather hostile things about the apartheid state somewhere overseas. And Malan approached him and tell him, like Magnus Malan approached him and tell him, like, hey, Chief, listen, you see, the Oppenheimers, the Anglo-American is quite huge. It's big. It's big. It's been there before the National Party and it's been striving before us. But your Rembrandt is news, a small thing. Will crush it, will destroy it. That threat, apparently, the man took it very seriously. And when he consulted, he was warned, like, hey, Chief, take that threat very, very, very seriously. So he depicts Rupert as a victim of apartheid, was threatened. And even this man now is a chance, man. He went to, in 1997, went to the TRC to testify about that tale. No, I was told that my company will be crushed. At least I was just told that his company was not crushed. Nothing happened to him. He can't say he was then a victim. How was he then a victim? He could operate, he could own so many businesses. What about those ones of other races who could not have the same privileges he had? These ones are privileged Afrikaner living off the legacies of racial inequality. And as soon as these chaps understand, that's the main reason we don't call these guys white monopoly capital because we hate them. No. We call them white monopoly capital because, yes, they did employ people, but they exploited the very same people. They got the rich at the expense of those people, paying them peanuts. They come on, guys, man. We don't have to explain how these guys got rich. They got rich on the foundations of apartheid. And because of that, it's very difficult for any of the formerly disadvantaged races to come contest directly in business with either of these chaps. We are not going to contest with Whitey Basson. Oh, it's Whitey Basson. We're not going to contest with Whitey Basson when it comes to retail, because ShopRite, look how big ShopRite is. You can't contest with these guys. Look how big Pep is. And this guy started these things from long ago, and they had so many of these privileges given to them at the expense of other races. And because of that, there'll always be a step ahead. They'll always be the richest 0.1% in the country. The amount of billions that exist between these four individuals, given to correct people, would solve a lot of crises, would solve the housing crisis, but then I must not come with my socialist ideas, but I'm just saying, I'm not really happy about the delivery of the book. I feel like the man was apologist. I feel like he's too sycophantic and too much of a tool under this man's care, under Rupert's care, because it doesn't say anything quite negative in this whole book about Rupert. He might say it just to entice you, but then, and he'll correct it with 2-3 sentences later with something much more unconscious actually. So I did not like the book. When I bought the book, I knew Whitey Basson, I knew Steinhoff, I knew Markus Jooste, I knew Christo Wiese, I knew Rupert. I had an understanding. I did not know what these guys were doing and how they were colluding with other sectors and stuff. But then I wanted to know more what really goes on deep inside. Had this man, Pieter Du Toit, explained into detail the crux of the misunderstanding between the two factions, one led by Rupert and one led by Jooste during Jooste's prime, and not just tell us it was his flamboyance. It could not just be his flamboyance, man, comrades. No, it just could not have been his flamboyance. Was this man threatened? Was Rupert threatened by Jooste? Would Rupert do anything to make sure that Jooste does not survive the light of day? To what extent would Rupert try? Come on, man. I explained. These are two factions. I explained and made an example of the ANC, the factions of the ANC, factions in taxi ranks, factions within gangs. This is no different. There were two factions, and now predominantly this one is gone. So this one is in charge. He won. I thought this book would give us a more detail into that and how this man, but then it doesn't. As I say, he paints him as a holy Afrikaner saint with a Rothman cigarette in his mouth. No, but besides that, would I recommend the book? If you do not know any of these gentlemen, or if there are two or three of someone, if you don't know any of these gentlemen, this might be a good book. This is a good book. It is a beginner's guide to understanding the functions or basic understanding the main stakeholders within the world of white monopoly capital, as Kakundi in its little place there in Stellenbosch. It's a good start. You'd have an understanding, but you would see them as saints, you see them as heroes, as billionaires who've worked very hard. Worked very hard. You'd see them as that. But how much would I rate it from a 0 and a 10? I'd give it a 4. I'd give it a 4. To be honest, to me, it was a waste of time. Reading this book was an absolute waste of time for me, because I had a basic understanding of Stellenbosch and the billionaires founder, but this man didn't do anything, didn't give me any new information besides trying to justify and paint some others as saints and some others as sinners. But to me, all of these chaps are sinners. All of them. All of them are sinners. There's no one better than the other. They're the same thing. All of them. All of them, they're the same thing. And I'd give this book a 4 because this man is quite biased and is protective, and he basically praises Rupert. Guys, I would not recommend anyone to buy this book, unless, of course, as I've already said, you want an introduction to what goes on there. You just buy this book. When you buy it, make sure you also buy this one. Like, they must go together. If you want to be, this is the introduction, and then you get to the real thing. Like the introduction, the real thing. This alone, it will give you rudimentary information, rudimentary and biased, one-sided information, and it will not do justice. Did not like this book. It might be a bestseller because it's misleading. It's misleading. Obviously, you're looking at this chap, Stellenbosch Mafia. Yeah, the man tells us these guys are not mafias. Chief, this is the most organized mafia we know in the country. Like, no, man, guys. I was not happy with this book. I would not recommend it unless you want introduction. If you want to buy the book, as I said, buy it with this one. If you want to buy it alone, no. Rather buy this one first and you put it in, and don't read it to buy it first to secure it. Then you can buy. Because also the value of the book, it's quite expensive. It's almost 300 rand for things you can find in newspapers, things you can find in Google. This man was bored. It's a horrible book. I give it a 4. Basically, this is the lowest rating book I've reviewed so far. Pieter Du Toit must come back and we debate thoroughly on white monopoly capital and why he is guilty of shielding them and protecting them as their penmen. I didn't like the book. I would not recommend the book to anyone. It's a pointless book.